And make sure you check out all these resources. Right now, we're going to put it in the hands of the one and only Mr. Chad King. Let's give it up for him, y'all.
Let's go, baby.
What up, though? Thank y'all very much for coming out and to this event. Major thanks to the Juneteenth Jubilee committee in Detroit for organizing and planning everything. And thank y'all for your attention. And please give the guests on the panel another round of applause. Give the guests on the panel another round of applause, please. All right, so we just heard earlier today about literacy. We've heard about financial freedom. We've heard about health and wellness. All of these things have a common through line, and that common through line is policy, because policy will often dictate what someone's healthcare plan may be, or what's available to them, or the funding for healthcare. Policy will often dictate the status of our school systems and the funding that our school systems have in order to engage our students and make sure that they are literate in this school system. Policy will dictate how much money you make per hour. Policy will dictate how much it costs to go to college. And so this particular panel is named Voting Vigilantes for a reason. It's important, it's critical. Quite frankly, we need to look at our vote as currency. We have to look at our vote as currency. I'm gonna say it one more time, look at our vote as currency. Because politics is what? An exchange. You do the things I need you to do for me and my community, I'll vote for you, right? That's how we should be treating our votes. We shouldn't give it away like charity. And so I'm honored to be on this panel with everybody up here. And we're gonna go ahead and get into the conversation. I want everyone to introduce themselves really quickly. Just a quick two-line statement about who you are.
I'm Ashanti Kafi. I'm a citizen here in Detroit, active member of the Black Slate, Detroit historical organization. Happy to be here with you. Thank you for the invite.
Hi, I'm sorry, my voice is kind of gone, so I'm gonna try to use my deep voice because it kind of worked better. But my name is Maya Jones. As Judge I said, I was the youngest person to run for mayor here in Detroit. Also founder and executive director of Duga Detroit. She said she was an Alpha, I'm a Delta, Detroit alumni from EE. And what else? That's it for now? Yeah.
Oh, hello. Everybody, I'm Nicholas Barnes. I'm a political strategist down here in the Detroit area. For the last few years, I've been working to help people like us get elected to office. As well, I do coaching in the side, so I'm pretty active in the community, helping people with cognitive impairments have access to safe and competitive sporting environments.
I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a historian, radio show host, national political commentator. Many people see me every Friday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. I'm a researcher, lecturer, writer as well. So we deal with a lot of these topics at the African History Network and focus on history, economics, law, and politics.
All right. Thank y'all very much. So we're going to get right into it. One of the things that we hear, especially, right now, as we have two presumptive nominees for president, we have folks running for Senate and Congress, and make sure y'all flip y'all ballot over and look at the judicial candidates, because it's more than just that partisan side. It's judicial candidates and ballot proposals as well. But one of the common refrains that we hear all the time is that this is the most important election of our lifetime. This week, I've heard that 4 times already, right? And that's not to say that it's unimportant, but 4 years ago was also the most important election of our lifetime. And then 4 years before that, 8 years ago was the most important. And then in 2012, it was the most important because President Barack Obama was was going for re-election. In 2008, and so on and so forth. So why is this particular election cycle different than the previous ones to make this one the most important? Who wanna go first? I'm gonna go with you, Nick.
Me personally, I would say this election cycle, first I would say I'm not really the one to fear monger when it comes to getting people to voting, but I understand that this is a very important election. I would say one of the reasons why we say it's one of the most important elections because outside of, traditional political ideology, there is a lot of hatred and, malice towards a lot of things that we take for granted in everyday life. that is on stake for the ballot, that we see that, you know, certain people kind of value certain things that we don't value, or take away certain rights. One of the biggest things, you know, that we have seen is, you know, getting rid of Roe v. Wade, taking away rights away from women. So I think at this point, it sucks that, you know, we have to tell people this is a very important election, but, you know, society has got to the point where human rights are on the ballot at this point, rather than political ideas. I think at this point, I think it's very important that we protect certain basic human rights that I'd like to think a lot of us believe in this upcoming election cycle.
Wait, Mike.
I'm gonna be the opposite. I don't think this election is the most important election of our lifetime. I think every election is important.
Hello.
And I think when we say like, oh, we hype one election up, people forget about every other election. You have local elections, you have state elections, you have federal elections. And when we hype up these presidential elections, the most important people to vote is our local officials who have direct policy implementation towards what affects us. So when people say that, it's always like just a hype game, but we have to hype up literally every single election, because we've lost so much as Detroiters when we forget about who to elect for mayor, who to elect for city council, our state representatives, that we don't really see what's happening and how money is moving out of our community and how our people are not being put in positions of power. So that's my quick answer to that.
Oh, hello. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the Detroit City Clerk, Madam Janice Winfrey. Y'all can do better than that. Come on now. Thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Real quick, so I'm going to pause on the question that we had real fast just to bring her up to speed. So we're talking about this election, why it's important. Some people say it's the most important. Some people disagree with that. You know, we just had a point that was made that every single election matters. Every single election is important. And you're the person, at least within the city of Detroit, that kind of oversees how these elections are ran. So if you wouldn't mind, just do me a quick favor, talk about why every election is important. Talk about what your role is in these elections and what you do and how you make sure that all of our votes count.
Well, thanks for being here. And again, I am your city clerk. And the question is, why is this election important? Well, like somebody pointed out earlier, every election is important. But I like to point out to people, your local elections affect your day-to-day lives, right? Your local elections determine when your street lights will be turned on, or when your garbage will be picked up, right? And the laws of the city of Detroit. But every election allows your voice to be heard. Oftentimes people think the presidential election is the most important election because it's the president of the United States. And it is important. However, it's also our largest turnout. And that's why I think people really, really feel like that's why that's the most important election. But as a clerk, it's my job to make sure that you know when election day is, that you know when you can register, that you know what's on the ballot, that you know where you go to register, and that you know the various ways in which you can vote, absentee, early, or on election day. So my job is to ensure that you know that information as it relates to elections, and that we receive the results and count them accurately and upload them for your view.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I want to touch on a couple things that folks have said. We're going to get back to the question. As a matter of fact, hold on. Brother Imhotep, please.
Yes. This is I'm a national political commentator. People can just Google my name and see hundreds of videos that come up about me. Yes, this is the most consequential, most important national election probably since the 1876 presidential election between Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel J. Tilden, which brought about the end of Reconstruction, which brought in the rewriting of state constitutions. Mississippi, 1890, South Carolina, 1895, Louisiana, 1898, Oklahoma, Georgia, things like this that solidified Jim Crow laws even before Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896. Go read Project 2025 from the Heritage Foundation. They're running the same game that they ran in 1980 with a book they released called Mandate for Leadership that contained 2,000 right-wing policies they wanted the Reagan administration to adopt. Many of these policies were anti-black policies. The Reagan administration adopted 60% of these policies in Reagan's first term. The reason reason why they're running the game again is because it worked the first time and people haven't figured it out. So it's not just president. President's important, but president nominates Supreme Court justices. The previous president, the traitor-in-chief, got 3 Supreme Court justices. Which list? Who supplied him with the list for the Supreme Court justices? The Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society. Who supplied him with the list of the 226 federal judges he got confirmed? Very ultra right-wing judges, many of them in their 30s at the National Bar Association. Then he said, we're not qualified to be federal judges. They got confirmed by a Republican Senate. They went on and confirmed them. So you got 226 federal judges. So you got, now the judicial branch of government interprets law from the legislative branch and interprets executive orders and policies from the executive branch of government. If you don't believe me, look at the executive order on student loan forgiveness, which would have lifted 500,000 African-American families from a negative net worth to a positive net worth. It would have benefited about 40 million Americans. That was struck down by a 6-3 conservative Supreme Court. So all elections are possible, or all elections are important. I've been involved in writing public policy for the city of Detroit. I've been on a committee to write an executive order. I understand that. But the city relies upon the federal government for funding, relies upon the state for funding. The state relies upon the federal. So all this is important, but we have to understand political self-defense. It's not just an exchange. It's also understand how to use politics as a tool to stop what people are trying to do to you. It's not only about what you can do for you. So we have to look at this holistically. I'll leave it right there.
My man, I'm not mad. So basically what you're saying is we need to weaponize our vote.
Weaponize your vote. And we have to stop telling African Americans to exercise your right to vote. You don't vote for exercise. If you want to exercise, go to the gym and work out. You vote for power. You vote for black power. Everybody understands this. Politics is the legal distribution of both scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. I'm a historian, also national political commentator. I understand this better than most people. So when you go throughout history, anytime there have been periods of progress that African Americans have made, whether it's during Reconstruction, there's always a backlash. And they fight you, they attack you, not just in the streets, they attack you in the courts, they attack you in the state legislatures, they rewrite state constitutions. Right now, Louisiana wants to rewrite the state constitution of Louisiana. The last time they did that, they imposed the grandfather clause in 1898. They imposed a 9-3 majority on criminal cases for you to be convicted. Anybody know about that? 1898, Louisiana rewrote the state constitution. So if you were convicted of a crime in the state of Louisiana, once that state constitution went in place, because African Americans could serve on juries, they specifically wrote that to nullify African Americans on juries. So if 9 white people found you guilty of a felony and 3 African Americans found you not guilty, you were guilty. That stayed in place till for decades, it was switched to a 10-2 majority. Then about 2018, it was switched to a unanimous, like every other state. This is the consequences of politics, but this was a backlash that took place in state legislatures to suppress the African-American vote, because there's about 2,000 African-American men who got elected during Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877. So all you have to do, if you want to understand how powerful your vote is, look at the opposition to it throughout history. Then you'll understand.
Ooh-wee. And this is why we call this panel Voting Vigilantes. Let's get it. Weaponize your vote. Ashanti, go ahead. What's your thoughts?
You know, I honestly think that we need to reacquaint ourselves with this concept called civic engagement, because that's where it starts. You know, we always talk about black people don't do this, black people don't do that. But if we took every booth out here and made it into a political organization, and then all those organizations came together for the betterment of the group and not our individual interests, that's what political power is. That's what Michael Imhotep is talking about. We have not just a duty to exercise, but we have an obligation, because this is the game and this is how it's played. So we can sit back and we can complain and we can talk about what's happening and what's not happening, or we can do what we need to do and get in the game and make shit happen. That's the bottom line. So, I mean, I think we have to take it back that far. We have to get engaged.
And engaged can mean a bunch of different things, right? So Nick, you help people get elected, right? Talk about that a little bit and why having elected officials that have not only, share our features and what we look like, but also share our values as a people. Why does that matter?
I think it matters because, like you said, the biggest thing for me is representation. If you have representation, you have somebody that understands you and where you come from, and your plight and how you live. So having that in the political system not only allows you, that I feel, live the life that you want to live, but have somebody that fights for the things that you want to have. So the biggest thing for me, I would say, is, having that representation in this political system is the biggest thing, because that's where it fundamentally lies overall. Because if you look at people that's not like us, they have a lot of representation in the political system. People know very wide variety of different ways, different viewpoints that they all come together to share at the end of the day. I think for us, having that representation is key, and just supporting people from your neighborhood or even from your city or township or your county is very important, because you want somebody that's from your neighborhood and somebody that looks like you and understands you and your community to represent you, because they'll implement good policies and advocate for things that you need, rather than coming in and whether trying to assimilate to the neighborhood that they have and change it, or overall just trying to change it overall to get it the way they want to see. So I think that representation and supporting candidates, getting out and donating, volunteering, knocking doors, doing phone banks, I think is very key, because, the political system reflects the way you interact with it. If you don't interact with the political system, it won't reflect the way it looks like for you. So if you interact a little more and you push people, you will start seeing that representation in the political system.
So Maya, what are your thoughts on that? Because you ran for the highest office in the city of Detroit, right? And you represent a demographic that is often underrepresented, that is often underserved, that is often not really considered politically for most of the time. What are your thoughts on making sure that the elected officials come from where we come from and have those shared experiences?
I think it's important, but I also think it's important that we understand what politics is for and what elected officials are for and what they do. So just because you brought this up, the quick story of where I ran for mayor when I was still in college at Michigan State was because I was an intern with the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. I was already really involved in student government at Michigan State. So I was president of BSA, on Homecoming Corps, president of MPHC, and we were able to really push policy on a student level, and I didn't really comprehend what I was doing because I was just doing it because I was just very involved in school. So one of my mentors was like, you should be an intern with the CBCF because you're very good at this. And I was like, well, I'm not a politician. I don't want to do this. Like, this is not what I do. Like, politicians are liars. That's what I believe as a 18, 19-year-old. So when I ended up going to Congress and I interned with Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, I was like, oh my God. These senators do the same thing we do in school, but on a bigger level, and they're way less effective. I was like, oh my God, we need like way more young people doing stuff, because young people are actually active and we push things through. And if you look at history and everything, a lot of the movements, it was young people who are active in pushing through policies and being disruptive. And this panel is for Vigilantes, right? So I did it as an act of, we need to step up and then also inspire the next generation, because succession planning in our community is really poor, in my opinion. We're not training the next leaders. We're not teaching our kids how to get themselves involved in politics. We're not teaching them how policy really affects the money that comes into our pockets, our homes, all of this. So for me, it was, how can I inspire and go back home to be able to push my friends and push my family members to be active, and then also put our issues on the table. Y'all know me, I had a big mouth when I was young. Miss Janice know, I was in her office all the time, like just running my mouth about how we need things and how we need to push things. And guess what? When I was talking about my issues, other candidates started talking about my issues too. That was my whole goal, was how can we talk about house gentrification? How can we talk about how our kids or our families can afford to buy homes and stay in our homes, right? So how do we push these issues to the front of the table? And that's what it was all about in the beginning. Now it's about, okay, how do we really push it? Because I've been working at Google for 6 years and I still see how we're struggling. So we see all this stuff happening in the city, but we can't even afford to buy the homes that are being renovated. We can't even afford to go to the hotels that's being built. So is it really for us? Are we really pushing our people forward to be able to afford this stuff or not? And I'm blessed to, again, work at Google and not have no kids, and I can do so. And even me buying my house, and I'm gonna tell you, it was $250,000. They're like, who is this 28-year-old girl? Meech, this is my realtor, Meech. He was my mentor at Michigan State. Like, we went through so much buying my house because of my act of resistance in purchasing in my neighborhood with that power. So we need to just ensure that, again, just going back to it, that we teach our kids how even trying to buy a house in our city is policy. So that's what this whole thing has been about, just a consistent act of rebellion against the system, against Black people.
Ooh-wee. Again, I'm with it. This is what we talk about, weaponizing our vote. Now, Ashanti, you are on the Black Slate. Now, for those that don't know, talk about what the Black Slate is, why it's important, and how it can be utilized as as leverage to further engage folks, and so that we can weaponize our vote.
The Black Slate is a historical grassroots political action committee. And what we do is we attempt to endorse the best candidate for the job. And so what does that mean? And so I talked about engagement earlier. And the brother over here talked about how to get active with those running for office. The bottom line is everybody's not going to do that. Everybody's not going to get out and research who the best candidate is. You're not going to look at their records to see what they've done historically. You're not going to read young Maya's bio to find out why she's qualified, right? So what the Black Slate does is we take on that body of work for you. We do all that research for you. We do all of that investigation and interviewing for you. And then we choose the candidate that we believe best represents the Black voice here in Detroit. And then we endorse those candidates. And because of our strong legacy, our endorsement reads a lot. We go to those polling places that Ms. Winfrey tells us to go to. We say, Ms. Winfrey, where are the voters going? So we can be there, we can show up, and we can have information to give those voters on who we think the best candidates are to vote for. And, you know, a lot of times we get that right, sometimes we don't. But we do our best to be your representative in that research process and choosing the best candidate. We've been doing that since the 1970s. The Black Slate was formed by Albert B. Clegg, who also is the founder of the Shrine of the Black Madonna, about a mile west of here over on Linwood. And you know, we're not just resting on our laurels on that history. We are still active in the community today.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I want to hit Madam Clerk Winfrey real quick, and I want you to kind of run down some of the resources that Detroiters have through your office, not just in the run-up to the election, not just at the time of election, but also post-election. Because a lot of times, once we vote, that's it. So what are some things that we can do, and how can your office help us do these things after an election is over with?
Okay, I'll address post-elections, but I want to piggyback on some of the things that was set up here. First of all, I want to applaud the young people that are up here, because it's important, and you clap for yourself too. but it's important, and like Maya said, she came to my office when she was on that ballot, and Maya had a lot to say. She was mad at me, she was mad, but you know what? I opened my doors and I listened and I engaged the Mayas of the world, because for real, we need you, and we need you to continue to do what you're doing. But you said something when you said that, you know, we don't prepare for our next. Well, let me just let you know I tried to get you, right? How many times did I try to get you? But what we do at the Department of Elections, and what I do in particular, is that I've identified about 25 young people of my staff, and we call them the young up and coming. And the oldest is probably about 35 years old. They're in leadership positions, and they're our next. We have already identified who will probably be the next clerk, my deputy clerk, if he runs. Who will probably be the next department director of elections, Chris Maduka, who's 30 years old, who's right now my chief of staff. But we not only teach them how to supervise and how to work with other people, but we also teach them how to buy homes, and how to rent, because many of our young people are just coming from their parents' home. So some of us do prepare for our next, because I'm not going to be doing this too much longer. I'm sitting there telling you now, I'm going to run again. But I know my time is coming. I want my time to come. It's time for our younger people to step up and do what they're supposed to do, and that's why we employ them at age 16. So what can we do post-election, and how can we continuously engage this process and engage our voters by, one, hiring our voters at every opportunity that we get, and also to have events like this throughout the city. Voter registration drives are great, but voter engagement and getting those people to the polls is better. We work all year long with churches, and some of these new laws that we have passed with Proposal 22.2, Detroit's been doing it all along under my purview. They told me we couldn't vote any other day but Tuesdays in November and August, and I said that's a bull. I said people should be able to vote when it's convenient for them. And so we opened satellite voting before early voting, right? We did that as a way to engage our people more than just one time out of the month of November and one time out of the month of August. We do events like this all year long to keep people motivated, to keep them encouraged, but really it's up to you, us, those people. Like if you go to church and your church has a van, if you're in a sorority or fraternity and they have transportation, you should be getting these people to the polls on election day. What we do throughout the year is prepare for the next election by giving events just like this. We have a big event coming up July 27th that I'll be talking about more. Yeah, that's the first day of early voting, but it's also going to be a huge event for the Department of Elections City Clerk's office. We're going to shut down West Grand Boulevard. We're going to have some local entertainment, and we're going to ensure that everybody that's in attendance, and we're expecting 1,000 plus, will be voting that same day. We also just had a state of elections a couple weeks ago that was well attended, and it was the media covered it very well, so people can know and understand what they can expect as we move closer to August and November.
Excellent, thank you very much. So I was just notified that we only got a few minutes left. I want to do a couple of quick announcements, then we're going to do final remarks. Thing one, if you're not registered to vote, get registered to vote at michigan.gov/vote-with-alphas. Michigan.gov/vote-with-alphas, you can register to vote. And that's also for you young people as well. If you're 16 years old, you can pre-register to vote, meaning you can complete that form, and guess what? By the time you turn 18, you will be able to vote if it's election time. So again, michigan.gov/vote-with-alphas. All right?
Saturday. And we often complain and talk about our voices not being heard. This is an opportunity for you to hear from the candidate. So again, July 20th, Wayne County Community College, Eastern Campus, 12 noon to 5 p.m. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Eric. Thank you. And as well, the Detroit Alphas always have a series called Conversations with Candidates. We've had a few of the people on this panel on that program before. So again, this is what we do every election, every vote. So we're about to wrap up because we about out of time. We've talked about how important this election is. We've talked about how consequential this election is. We've talked about how it's important to really weaponize our vote, and we've talked about the resources that your local official, Madam Clerk here, is able to provide for Detroit residents. Right now, I want each of the panelists to identify. And I want to make sure we touch on this and conceptualize the fact that it's important who we vote for, but it's more important what we vote for. It's important who we vote for, but it's more important what we vote for. And so with that being said, I want to make sure I give each of y'all time to identify 3 whats that matter in this election. Brother Imhotep.
Well, number one, you're dealing with student loan forgiveness. Number 2, you're dealing with saving the democracy, because even though you have a fantastic economy, one of the fastest growing economies in the Western Hemisphere, 15 million jobs created, 2.6 million jobs went to African Americans. Stock market reached 40,000 points, Dow Jones Industrial Average for the first time in history. You lose your democracy, none of that happens. All you have to do is go study other totalitarian societies, and you see what I mean. And then Next, I would say also the attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we saw the Supreme Court strike down affirmative action when it comes to college admissions because of conservative activist Ed Bloom and his lawsuit. Now Ed Bloom is going after the Fearless Fund, which you have African American women providing small venture capitalist loans and small grants for women of color. They're going after that also. That was just blocked in a federal appeals court, okay? And those were federal judges. Two of those federal judges were appointed by the guy who incited the insurrection January 6, 2021, okay? So we have to understand how all of this is connected, and I would encourage people to go to whitehouse.gov and just search for how these policies have helped black people. Because there's a 36-page document that comes out at whitehouse.gov that shows how this administration's policies, like $16 billion for HBCUs, you look at 1 million African-American children lifted out of poverty from the $1.9 trillion America Rescue Plan that no people in the House or the Senate from the other party voted for. Also, follow me at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Keep it with the African History Network. Follow me on Facebook, The African History Network, 1 million followers there. YouTube, 74,000 followers, Michael Imhotep. And come visit my vendor booth. It's right down this strip with the white top and the point. I have my DVD lectures there as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We got a few more. Nick, go ahead.
I would say just to keep it quick. Biggest three, first thing for me is your wealth is on the ballot. You got to supply yourself to supply your wealth. Voting is the first step in protecting your wealth. Make sure that you have good people on the ballot. It's going to have good things for you to, have business and do other things, tax breaks and all of that. So your wealth is the first thing I'm going to say. Housing, which also ties into your wealth. We want people that's going to make sure that we're going to have good housing and other things that's going to supply our wealth. So your housing, infrastructure, I'll put those all in one. We've been seeing a lot of construction around here, so that's definitely on the ballot. And the third thing, I would say, you are on the ballot. You are a vote. If you don't vote, it's like going to a restaurant, paying your bill, and walking out without your food. So I would say you're on the ballot. If you're a tax-paying citizen, you might as well get out there and vote, because at that point, you're just throwing your money away as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you very much, Nick. Mike, what you got?
I had to take notes on this. So I know you said like 3 things to vote for, but one thing we gonna all say is economics, period. So when it all comes down to it, it's about money a lot of the times. Money solves healthcare issues, buying homes, being able to afford things, basic needs, even beyond your basic needs. So just ensure that we as black folks continue just to think about wealth building. Like we have to build wealth to sustain wealth in our community and in our family. I want to shift a little bit. We need to do more collectivism. You talked about it here. Like, we need to learn how to work together as a community. And that's something that we really lack a lot of the times, because if we let small issues dictate how we communicate with each other. One thing that I love to tell people is no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. We need to just really stick to our interests and our values. Because if we don't do that, we're going to just spend so much time losing time, because we just simply can't get off the fact that I don't have to like you, but we can work together. We can figure out how to press our community forward, because we're not going to like every single person we run into. Sometimes I don't like my brother, but we still have to figure out how we're going to build our family together, right? So we're all affected by it. So learn how we can work together. Then my last thing was mindset shift. Like, black folks, we need to shift our mindsets, because there are times, because I'm in law school too, so I've been studying the Constitution again. I study African American Studies at Michigan State. I do a lot of research and history studying too, and I just feel like sometimes we still get stuck in the slavery mindset, and some of us are not out of that mindset of we can't and we won't, because we will and we can. So when we shift that perspective of that we can and we will, I think we can start pushing for way more than what we are as a collective group. So those are my 3 things. I know it ain't issues, but it's just what I believe.
We're going to invite Maya to the shrine.
Let's come on to the shrine. Sister Ashanti, go ahead, you got it. What's your 3 whats that we should be paying attention to as we hit the ballot box?
I think our health is on the line. I also think there's tremendous value in what Brother Imhotep said. History is on the line, and if you are paying attention to the rhetoric about what states' rights is, if you're paying attention to this agenda for political race theory, that's still an issue. These individual states are putting policies into place. And if we go back and look at history, it starts in one place and then it spreads. Right? So your interests, whether you are aware or not, are on the line. Your blackness is on the line. We have people who are running, and I know we don't think that, some of us don't think that this is the most important election of our lives, but the man with the orange hair is not a friend of black people. He is not a friend of black culture. Please don't have short-term memories and forget this is the same man who in New York put out an ad to send 5 innocent black boys to prison without equivocation.
Hello, somebody.
Please don't forget. Okay? Don't put the dollar over your personal lives, because that, to me, that's what's at stake.
Madam Winfrey, what are your 3 whats as far as the election? If you can get into that, because I know you kind of sit in a precarious position and things like that, but give us what you got for it.
Not precarious, just nonpartisan. So because I count all ballots and all candidates and all initiatives, I cannot say what you should vote for, but I can tell you what to do when you vote. Make sure you turn that ballot over, because oftentimes we forget the back of the ballot has candidates on there too, mostly judicial. I can also tell you to make sure that you vote for every contest, because oftentimes, if you leave it blank because you don't know a particular person or initiative, you're essentially giving a vote to something that you may not want. So make sure you vote every contest. And then finally, make sure you know the ballot. We send you a sample ballot, but there are nonpartisan groups that go over each initiative, that interviews every candidate, and they don't tell you who to vote for, but they tell you what they stand for. You can go to the Women League of Voters website. They do an excellent job. Citizens Detroit, they do an excellent job. The 100 Black Men, they do an excellent job. Nonpartisan, but they will digest all those initiatives and candidates for you.
And the music is playing on us. That's our time. Thank y'all very much for coming to the Voting Vigilantes panel.
If you like this type of information, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for this full online course, and it's 10 multi-week sessions, okay? And we have a few more sessions left. Now, we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. So our next sessions are today, June 1st. We're going to start up in a few minutes as soon as I finish this broadcast. So you can join us at our online school. This is taught at our online school, the African History Network online school, June 8th and June 22nd, 2024. All right. And here's the flyers. Well, the classes are on sale, $60, regularly $130. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. As soon as you register for this course, you can go back to class number 1. You can watch all the class sessions. They're archived. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips. I show you excerpts of interviews I've done with many of our scholars as well, like Professor James Small and Tony Browder and Runoko Rashidi, etc. You can look at our class lesson plan here as well. I've been teaching this class on and off since 2007. I've been studying history 34 years. I put together an extensive class lesson plan that takes you through each class session to show you an outline of the type of content that we cover. You can download the class lesson plan as well to help you in your studies, help you in your research also. Okay. We have a preview of the class here as well. And then my second class that starts up. Now we got information for my my online show, my radio show, the African History Network show as well. Facebook, YouTube, download the iHeartRadio app. You can listen to podcasts also. But my new class starts up class number 1 starts up Sunday, June 23rd, Black Resistance Movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. Now, this is a fantastic class, and this class actually helps us to understand what is taking place right now in America with the attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion, with the attack on critical race theory, with the attack on voting rights, anti-Black laws being passed, all of this. This class right here, and I developed this class. I first started teaching this in late 2021. And I created this class because what I realized was the first class that I taught, I had so much information to cover. I did not have a chance to really dig in deep into this period of history from 1800 to 1968 to understand what leads to the U.S. Civil War taking place. What happens during the Reconstruction era, 1865 to 1877. We look at policies like the Missouri Compromise of 1820. We look at the Haitian Revolution, 1791 to 1804, and we start with the Haitian Revolution and the Louisiana Purchase of 1803 because those two events are connected. Okay, the Louisiana Purchase, one of the reasons why it took place was because of the Haitian Revolution and Napoleon Bonaparte and the French getting their behinds kicked by the Haitians. Okay, so we take you through our history and look at this history chronologically. All right, so we look at the Missouri Compromise. We go look at the Mexican-American War, 1846, 1848. Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo of 1848, which is how the U.S. gets California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Nevada. Okay, this is how they get all of this territory. And we see what leads to the U.S. Civil War taking place. South Carolina is the first state to secede from the Union, December 20th, 1860, 6 weeks after Abraham Lincoln becomes president-elect. And you have them, the South thinking that Lincoln is going to free the slaves. So we look at the U.S. Civil War. We look at the Reconstruction era, 1865, 1877. And African Americans get voting rights. You have the 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitutions. And then we see with the Compromise of 1877, we're going to see a lot of those rights reversed. And we see an attack on voting rights today, continuing the attack on voting rights and rights that African Americans were given that took place during the Reconstruction era. We see that we can draw a straight line from the January 6, 2021 insurrection that took place, not just because of the election of Biden-Harris and the big lie being pushed. That's part of it, but also January 5th, 2020, January 5th, 2021, the day before the January 6th election, you had the special Senate election in Georgia, a former Confederate state, where Senator Raphael Warnock, the African-American man, won his reelection to the U.S. Senate. And you had Senator John Ossoff, who's a Jewish man. He won, and a Democrat, he won his senatorial election. And this gave Democrats control of the Senate, a slim majority in the Senate, with Vice President Kamala Harris being a tie-breaking vote. All right. So you had Donald Trump, who was saying that African Americans, he was saying that people were cheating in Detroit, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Atlanta, Georgia. And these are cities that have high African American populations. I live 4 minutes away from what was known as the TCF Center, which is where they were doing the vote count in downtown Detroit. Okay, I saw I saw the protests going on outside and how you had these Trump supporters out there. Okay, you can draw a direct line from the collapse of Reconstruction and the political violence that helped bring an end to Reconstruction and what's taking place right now. Okay, so we deal with this in these two classes. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for these classes right now. You can join us in class today because we have a few class sessions left of my main class that I teach called Ancient Kemet, one of the original names for Egypt, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay, so it's on sale $60, regularly $130. Like I said, we do the click right here to register here. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. The content is PG-13, so you can use